Hello, my name is Felix. I am a game design student. I'm my senior year, and I'm working on this solo design project called HyperHam Delivery Company. You play as a hamster, you're rolling around at high speed, doing stuff, getting money for rent. I tried to do a devlog for this game a little while ago, and it didn't go super well, but I was like, you know what, it'd be fun to do it just to keep me motivated, because I am just not feeling super great this weekend. So I was like, hopefully it'll kind of like help me feel a little bit better about working. So I just actually had my work log open and was looking at it. So one thing that I want to fix, this is a tech debt week for me, so I kind of have free reign over what I want to work on, is this the hamster getting displaced from the ball. So I'll show you what that looks like with the music turned all the way down. You can see how if I get the camera to go towards the ground, he kind of like gets pushed out of the ball. The reason for that is, ignore this, this is really bad. He does all these different poses, and rather than animating them, it's easier to just turn a mesh on and off. But he's actually parented to the spring arm that holds the camera. So whenever the spring arm gets too close to the ball, that's whenever he starts popping out of it. So I think what I can do is just say, if the target arm length is, or if the arm length is less than the target, just parent this thing that's holding all the hamsters to the ball instead of the camera arm. I had it set up that way before. The problem with it is that the ball jitters, so the hamsters also jitter, so it looks really bad whenever you start moving quickly. So I'm going to pop in. I haven't actually seen the like variables and parameters and stuff yet for the spring arm, so here's my like super gross event graph, and I'm going to see if I can fix that. Oh, whoops. Interesting. I unpaused my OBS thing, I think. Yeah, okay, and that uses the same hotkey as Unreal. That's a pain. Okay, well, yeah, because I just have it set to my pause key on my keyboard. That stinks. Well, so what I did, I looked at the code, and there's no way to get the current spring arm length, but I just did a really simple setup. It's probably pretty low res on the side, but you can see numbers printing out, and that's just the distance from the camera to the spring arm, which the spring arm's location is based on the center of the ball, whereas the camera's location obviously is out there. So if that distance is lower, and I'm going to use a little bit of a threshold, god, that's a pain, because you can see as I kind of move the camera around, it goes just a little bit under 500 occasionally. It'll hit like 499 or something like that. So I have a little threshold of like, if below, you know, the arm length minus 50 or something like that, then switch the parent of the hamster, which I'm 90% sure that I can switch. I can reparent it to something else, but I don't know when the last time I tried to do that in Unreal was ever, so I'll have to see. Okay, so I almost got this working. You can see if I get the camera nice and close up, doesn't pop out. However, this is just too good not to have. So I think I'm probably just parenting it to the wrong object. Huh. I'm not. Okay. Oh, that's why. I just realized it snaps to the spring arm instead of keeping a world. But I have a feeling if he's moving fast, this might kind of get janked up. Or if he's moving like at all. Okay, yeah, okay. That's not quite what I was going for. Oh, you know what? This, because I'm using a select to determine which parent to use, so I should just be able to use the same select for this. I'll come back in a minute if this works. Okay, so with just, I realized that the select probably isn't even necessary, but just with keep world on, this almost works. but something I realized is a side effect of the threshold is that he does get moved by the camera just a little bit. So the more you do this, the more offset that he'll be. That's due to the fact that there's a little bit of time. I did like a -50 for the target arm length. So there's a time where it's between 500 and 400 or so that he moves with the arm, and then it switches the parent over to the ball, and then he gets kind of screwed up. So I think that what I need to do is just every time it switches, manually set his relative location to 0, 0, 0. I think, I'm not sure what it's at. Okay, whenever he's attached to the spring arm, it's like 490. Wonder why it's 490 and not 500. Okay. Well, that might also be kind of janking things up. So, yeah, I'll try that and then come back. Okay, this seems... this is such pain. I'm going to have to change that hotkey. But this seems to be working as intended. This is with switching switching it based on... God, what was the word? I literally just forgot. Setting its relative location back. Now, a little bit of an issue with this is that it's doing this function, this set hamster rotation function, gets called every frame. So it's setting these parents every single frame, and it's setting the relative location, which is also nicely driven by the target arm length. So if I adjust the target arm length later, it'll still work. So I think what I'm going to do is just have something that keeps track of when this boolean flips, and then only call these functions when that gets flipped. And that should help make this a little bit more efficient. Not that it's probably that big of a deal right now, but I just like to make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so with just a few more nodes, this new boolean just checks if it's not the same as the last state of it. If they're not equal, then we change what that last state was and update everything. And here's what it looks like in play. Basically exactly the same as previous, but now that code's a little bit, runs a little bit faster. So next steps are just straightening out these wires a bit, and I get to knock that off of my list. So yeah. Just in case you like nice clean blueprints, checking out those sweet straight wires. Okay, maybe not super straight, but we'll fix this one real quick. Okay, so much better. There you go. And now I'm going to go eat dinner and come back to this later. Wow, okay. I had that open because I got up for like probably over an hour, and surprisingly, OBS pausing didn't seem to screw it up. Yeah, I'm back. I'm full of my mom's delicious black bean burgers, and I've showered, so I'm nice and clean. Now I got to figure out what I'm gonna do next. Probably this make money edition's more noticeable. Yeah, I'll do that. So, oops, wrong tab. Here's what's going on with that. That's strange. Oh, I must not have compiled after doing that. You have like a little wallet UI up in the top left there, that whenever you collect stuff, it adds money. So I'll fly through a money pickup here, and you'll see, boom, I got $10. If you're not watching that corner of the screen, there is an audio feedback of a little like ching. Oh, I keep forgetting that pausing that way. I'll do that. But basically what I want is that the I gotta do this every time. This is such a pain. What I'm thinking is I want the I can disconnect my cursor so you can see this. The number to pop up like right around the guy so that it comes up within where the player is focusing, and then fly up into here and add. That should be pretty easy because if I go here, while in tutorial, I'm pretty sure this already has, well, I know that it has a animation for this. So I think if I just make this animation a little bit longer and then have it like kind of fly up from the center, I should be good to go. So I'm gonna test that and I'll come back. Also a quick thing, check it out. Well, I guess now it's hard to see, but I removed the pause binding from my Unreal 4 editor preferences. So now, whenever I hit pause, it won't pause the game if I have the thing open. So yeah. Okay, so after a bunch of finagling, I updated this animation. Now it'll zoom up there. And I think that this will work pretty decently. I do have a delay for when it would sit before, so you can see how much is getting added. That I think for now I'm just going to disconnect this and we'll see how this goes. Oh no! Whenever you're working in widgets in this version of the engine, it frequently crashes when going back to the editor. This was something I was looking at because I was thinking about moving the transform randomly or manually, and then realized I definitely didn't want to do that. So I guess whenever this is done and I can restart, I'll try that again. Okay, I got it back open. For a little extra context, when I was talking about the manual scaling, my concern was that I want to get it close to the center of the screen regardless of what the aspect ratio is, because I need it to be, I don't want it to obscure the ball, but I also want it to go relatively to this position every time. If it's a little bit off here, it's not the end of the world because it's going to get there and then disappear anyway. But I'm pretty sure that by using the translation and having it anchored to the whole canvas, this works pretty well in terms of keeping it consistently where I want it on the screen. Unless you have it in like a super wide screen. Well, that's strange actually. I wonder why that's happening. Oh. I honestly don't know why it's getting so stretched out like that. That's really weird. If I have it like this, it doesn't do that. Okay, in all fairness, I'm not sure why that's happening or even how to fix it, so I'm gonna try this and see if it works. Alright, so as it happens, I'm an idiot and pressed the wrong hotkey, so I stopped my recording early and I thought I was recording a bunch of stuff that I actually wasn't. So here we are. I fixed this thing. Kind of. It's probably still going to get messed up on like ultra widescreen monitors or whatever, but it's not super bad. It's not really bad, so I'm going to call it good. Problem is, whenever I play it, if I press 5, it'll give me extra money. So thing goes up, looks great. I have no idea what is making it come back down. That it looks like the like it's playing in like ping pong, but nothing. That's because I have it play in reverse at the end for some reason. Okay. I'm not sure why. Oh, this must have been here when it just whenever it didn't like fade out on its own. Okay, so if I just disconnect this, plug this in here instead. Make it work. Go up. Not what I wanted to have happen. Oh, that's why. I need the opacity to drop again at the end of the animation. So I'm thinking from like here up. We'll grab the opacity, we'll do a keyframe here, And then when we get to the top, we'll key it out to 0. I should have added a frame, but sometimes it's weird about adding frames. Okay. That should do what I need it to do. I got 50 bucks. Cool. Fantastic. That was way more of a pain. I mean, I anticipated a little bit of a pain in the butt with it, but actually, I guess that wasn't too bad. Could have been worse. Okay, that's another thing crossed off my list. Yeah, as you can see, 42 out of 30 minutes. Darn. Slightly underestimated how long it was going to take. Yeah, the next thing that I was like, oh, I need to fix this is... This would be nice. But honestly, this is probably more important. So yeah, whenever you talk to characters, it's not really visible in the first instance you do this, but I'll just spam my way through the dialogue. Your character kind of tends to just roll around while you're trying to converse with other characters, which people find annoying. I can put this guy on a much more flat slope, but you'll still have some momentum that will kind of throw you off. And people like me, whenever I'm testing it, I didn't really realize it was a problem before because I'll just roll around while I'm talking to people. But other people who aren't as good with the game don't multitask like that. So what I'm going to do, I think I can just do like linear damping on the ball. Let me just try this real quick. Yeah, so I can set linear damping. I think that if I just crank up the damping whenever you let go of the like move forward input, then it should make it so that you actually come to a stop and you don't roll around. I'm also going to do it, I'm also going to have a check for the angle of the ground. So if you're on like a steeper, if you're on a steeper hill, obviously this won't happen, but if you're on like a pretty flat surface, then it will. So I'll do just the damping first to see if that works, and then I'll come back. So when I went in to do this in the input, I realized that for some reason move forward and fall, which are literally just, if you look at the project settings, they're just one button. I think this is symptomatic of my game being super duper old, and me having no idea how things worked before. So I'm gonna make these not axes, and the benefit of that will be that I can actually get the this is firing all the time, and it's just always putting in an axis value, whether that value is 0 or not. If I do a input action, it can actually give me the pressed and released, which will be useful in triggering turning on and off that linear damping. Something else I realized, I want to check if this is actually recording. Yeah. Something else I realized while I was doing this is that I actually have it set up so that the left trigger moves you, and the right trigger is the thing that you press to like fall fast so that you slide down hills quickly. It works kind of like tiny wings. And I was like, why would I have it set up like that? And I think the reason that I have it set like that is because the right stick, if you're using a gamepad, is what controls the camera. And so the depressing the left stick pretty much all the time, having that pulled down with the left trigger and moving the right stick is probably easier on most people's hands than doing the right trigger and the right stick at the same time. That's actually an issue I'm experiencing with my team project right now, is we have a selection that requires you to hold down that trigger and use that joystick simultaneously, which for people who play games frequently, it's not really a big deal. But if you don't play games a lot, that's kind of a weird input to do. So this is something that I was looking back at it like, why did I set it up this way? And actually, design-wise, it probably makes more sense than the other. So kind of just an interesting thing. Okay, after looking at my code, I realized that while doing it with input actions probably would have made more sense from the beginning. Going back and fixing this to work with them now, it's going to be more of a pain than it's worth. So I'm going to commit to using input axes in a way that is probably kind of stupid and not really worth it. But I don't want to deal with going back and fixing old code, so this is what I'm rolling with. After a bunch of finagling, similar to the last thing, I guess, I kind of have this going, but obviously it presents some errors with just doing it via damping. I'm not doing any checks either. The only check that I'm doing is whether or not the player is holding down the move forward input. So I think that this is still worth pursuing, like slowing them down whenever they are talking to somebody. But I'm going to have to do a fair bit more work here. I need to check whether or not they're actually grounded, whether or not they're touching the ground. And I also probably want to do, like I mentioned before, how steep the slope is. But I actually had to go back and refactor a bunch of my control code because I did stick with the axes. I thought actually the axes probably was the smartest way to do it. I kept going back and forth with myself, but that's probably this is a good thing to do. But yeah, I had to change some stuff because there are some things that I want, and I realized like my audio the sound of the footsteps, the volume was being changed every frame, which again, not necessary. Change it once just whenever the state updates. That's kind of what's going on here as well. But it's not just, I also have to do some other checks that are going to have to happen probably on like event tick, but also consider this. So there's going to be a bunch of conditionals that I have to figure out, but I will come back when I have at least some of it figured out. Cool thing that's happening to me, should normally be able to press Control W for whooplicate, and for some reason that's not working right now. So every time I want to copy something, I have to Control C, Control V like a freaking peasant. So just thought you might want to feel some of my pain there for me. So now I'm at the point where I want to check the angle between the normal vector off of the line trace, so the normal off of the ground basically, against the up vector to get essentially the slope of the ground. And I paid like $1,200 or something to take linear algebra at DigiPen, which basically equates to looking up how to do this on the Unreal Engine 4 forums every single time, because I literally never remember how to get the angle between two vectors in Unreal. So I spent a bunch of time trying to figure out how I could get the trace to go down far enough to actually touch the ground if you're on a slope like this, because you see how the bottom of the ball, it's not the bottom of the ball it's touching the ground, it's like kind of the side. And so if you're doing a line trace straight down from the ball, it has to be further and further offset in order to detect larger changes in angles. And then I remembered that I only want my damping effect to happen at a low angle anyway. So I just keep overthinking problems. Yeah. Actually, I just realized that rather than having to do a bunch of math to figure out the angle, because it's a ball and because it won't detect the ground if you are at a certain angle, it's kind of already like, just by nature of how far I send the line trace down, it just like won't hit at a certain point. So actually this works really well in my favor. So I should have to do significantly less code. I already have a line trace in for checking whether the ball is grounded so that I could apply different amounts of force to simulate sort of like grip on the ground, because I'm not doing it with torque, I'm doing it with impulse. So actually already have a bunch of the code that I need, so that's cool. I just need to do a little bit more to actually turn that damping on and off. Okay, I think I have this set up the way that I want it. So yeah, if you I'm gonna need to turn up the damping a little bit, but you have to meet a few conditions if you're not on a steep slope. So the slope has to be pretty flat. You have to be going a low speed, and something else. You got to be grounded. Oh, and you have to let go of the input. and then you'll kind of slow down. And actually, once I got like my grounded and my input boolean set up, this was pretty dang easy. And again, the grounded, I don't need to actually check for I don't need to manually get the angle of the ground because it's a ball. It's not gonna count as grounded if the slope is steep enough and if the ground check isn't very deep. So that's why this is working. But if I crank up this stop damping variable a little bit, it should give me some better results. Let's see. Looks pretty good to me. It feels a little bit weird, but I mean, I don't think that it's something that people are going to be doing super frequently in play. I don't know. And you do have to like reach a minimum low like you have to go below a threshold for the speed in order for it to in order for your guy to kind of hit the brakes. So oh, that's funny. I guess the ground check must have worked there or something. I don't know. Anyway, you still kind of fall down this hill. This kind of sucks. Maybe I just need to flatten this part out in particular because you do actually talk to this guy, and that's kind of, there's only two characters that you really talk to at length, and that's the boss and your roommate. So I'll just flatten this terrain out a little bit. I'll actually do this on video so you can kind of see. But Unreal has some pretty robust tools for this. Funny thing that I did was made all of these individual landscapes because it was like, oh, that'll make it like easy to move them around and it'll like make them a little bit more modular. But now that I have them in place, I don't really want to move them around, and it takes a fair bit more effort every time I want to, like, when I was doing the materials for these last week, I had to do it for every single one. I mean, it was just one material, but I had to like drag it into each slot for each one instead of just one time. And if I want to edit stuff, I have to switch over. Thankfully, this is a pretty simple system, but this was just kind of a stupid thing that I did, and I don't think there's any real easy way to like merge these and fix my mistakes. I'm gonna turn down my camera speed a little bit so that I can actually navigate around here. And let's see, lower that a lot. Well, that doesn't really work. You gotta get stuck in there. Okay, this will probably take a few minutes because I haven't used these tools, so I'll come back when it's done. I think I have things about evened out to where I want them to be. I used a tutorial, and maybe I'll link them in the description because it was really good for how to do this like height-based dynamic terrain. So you can, I'll like jot something out here so that you can see really easily and clearly. Maybe not really easily and clearly. This is taking this flatten tool, and that'll make it easy to see. Yeah. So this updates dynamically based on height change, and I like almost kind of wish that I had done it before I went through and sculpted out my terrain, because it makes the sculpting experience really not only like more fun to watch, but also like, I don't know, it just gives you a better sense for the slope and the feel of it, how everything's going to be when it's done. Okay, so I need to pull this guy up out of the thing, which will be, oh, it would be a cool time to demonstrate the hotkey for moving him into the ground, but I'm pretty sure if I do that, it's going to end my recording. So let's see, transform, pivot. There's some way to get him to just snap to the floor. I know that it's with the end key, but if I do that, like I said, come on. This is the most boring thing ever to watch. Aha. There you are. Snap to floor. Okay. Fixed. Cool. That should make that experience a lot less terrible. And it only took me an hour and 35 minutes, which is 3 times as long as I expected. Oh no, just twice as long as I expected. Oh my gosh. 1 hour 35 minutes. Next. I think this tutorialization would be good. So I have this, but I also have this float on water thing. Right now my respawn system is pretty garbage, so if I touch the water, it's gonna fade the screen out and respawn me inland. Also, you can see under the water, which is pretty hilarious. The only problem with that is inland used to work great whenever there was one piece of contiguous terrain that was centered on the world origin, and now there are 3 in a very tiny little island all over the place. So that doesn't work too great anymore. My idea for fixing that, and not breaking the flow of the game every time people fell in the water as well, because most of the time when people fall into the water, they're like very new and they're having trouble just getting over hills and stuff, which is slightly mitigated by the fact that oh shoot, I was gonna have a whole system. I completely forgot that I didn't get this implemented yet, at least that the first deliveries would only happen on this little island and then you would unlock the other ones as you played. But I haven't implemented that yet, so you might still go to do your first delivery and it'll be like, go deliver something over there, and you have to jump over the water here. But I don't want to. It just feels kind of bad to like get the player stuck in this infinite loop of like hit the water, respawn, and they can't make it over this jump or whatever, and then they like keep doing it. So what I'm thinking is make this actually kind of a solid object, but I'm going to see if I can make the collision like a little bit lower so that it actually looks like your ball is kind of like going into it a little bit, but it's like buoyant. I guess if you like bounce off the water really hard, it's going to look kind of funny, but we'll test it, we'll see. And then just put some giant walls around the outside. It'll be like a big natural crater, I guess, like in the middle of a big lake or something. So yeah, I'm gonna mess around with the collision of that and see how that works. Okay, so this actually, I literally just added a collider to it because I guess I had removed the collision that was on it and kind of lowered it a little bit, which actually gets a pretty close effect to what I want for the hamster. Obviously, like it looks like the ball fills up with water, which isn't what I would want, but I don't think there's any way to like not have that happen. I'll just make the ball not sink so far into it, but an issue with that regardless is if it sinks in at all, the camera's also going to be able to clip into it, and then you're going to be able to see a like garbage train underneath it. So I think what I'm going to have to do is have 2 separate collisions, one for the hamster and one for the camera. So the camera one will be on top of the water and the hamster one will be lowered into a little bit. Or I might just try putting the collision. I'm gonna just try to make this not have any depth to it, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe this will look fine still. But you definitely bounce off it a lot more than I would want, but the camera doesn't go into it at least. And I can probably, I think even if I change the physics material on this to not have, I wonder what the elasticity on those are. PM underscore ball. Let's see, restitution is 0.1. So if the water restitution is also low, let's see, physics, yeah, that physical material, PM underscore water, and we'll make its restitution quite low. Let's see how that works now. Okay, you still bounce on a little bit, but that's definitely far less egregious than it was earlier. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. I don't know though if people are going to be like, oh, I get it, the ball is just like airtight and therefore able to skip along the water, because you would expect the ball to at least go into a little bit, so this is definitely better than just respawning when you hit the water though, so you know what, I'm gonna call that good for now. And put a big natural border along the world, and that will also let me shrink this quite a bit, except I don't know if I want to, because I set this up in a janky way wherein I just made a really big BSP brush and converted it to a static mesh, I guess, for my ocean mesh, which is, it's really just a big rectangle. So yeah, I'll go ahead and make that and see how that turns out. An extremely hilarious thing that I realized about this was despite taking a bunch of time to like cut out all of these terrains so that they would, what's the word for it, sort of like not be taking up a bunch of extra space that they didn't need to, this one is going to because it's gonna have a bunch of space in the middle. I mean, I can cut out a bunch of this terrain, but it has to be a real big terrain in order to be able to circle the whole way around the world, so it's great. Just a bunch of dumb things that I did over the course of making this, but you know, it's a student project, it's a solo thing, and it's probably not gonna damage like the efficiency or the run too much, so it's whatever. I'll go ahead and fill in these walls and get back. One thing about doing the map design on kind of the interior is that everything has to be like very nice and flowy and even and smooth, and I really missed getting to use like the noise tool to throw in some gnarliness in there, which is really fun. I'm pretty sure that despite my best efforts in making this very steep, and when I say very steep, I mean occasionally bumping the world height limit, I guess, or however that works for the terrain tool. Can I was like, maybe I can kind of cut away with the noise tool, but I can't. Well, that's a shame. Anyway, what was I getting at? Yeah, I think despite my best efforts, there will probably still be places where it's like kind of possible to break out of the map if you're extremely determined. So I'll probably still end up putting invisible barriers around, but this actually came at the suggestion of one of my friends, David, who essentially, whenever I brought up the idea of just like, oh, I'll put invisible walls the whole way around the world, was like, if players can get out there, if they're physically able to go over there, but then, you know, there's just an invisible wall with no explanation that's really out of place, it's not going to feel great. So this is looking very silly and not realistic, but this is a game about rolling hamsters around and balls at extremely high speed, so I'm not super concerned about that. I can definitely scale in my ocean a little bit too. Probably not a whole lot, because if the player manages to get like a ton of air, I don't want them to see over the walls, but I don't think that's likely. They'd have to really get up there, so that's cool. Just because this is close enough to being one, and I'll have crazy compulsiveness about it if it doesn't. There we go. Okay, now putting in invisible walls is always a tedious task, but I'll probably do it in more or less a box formation, so I'll be back. A couple of things that I've learned about working on teams with other people, which is a great experience. If you get to make a game with other people collaboratively, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it if you ever get a chance. That being said, two things people do that drive me absolutely insane is nothing is in folders, so they have about 3 gajillion objects in their level. People not converting BSPs over and things like that, so you get this massive, massive list of everything that's there. It's horrible. Other thing is, if you have boxes like these blocking volumes, they're a brush that has box extents. When people scale these like this, that drives me absolutely crazy. That's why this is here. That's why the box extents exists. Don't do it the wrong way. Do it the right way. So, yeah, people will do gross things in the game that you're working on, and guess what? You just gotta kind of throw your hands up and be like, either you talk to them about it and be like, please don't do it this way, or say, you know what, it's not the end of the world. It's gross, but we'll make it work. So this is where I've got both the invisible walls and these things, so that at least when you get over there, you're like, okay, those invisible walls are warranted. I can see that they don't want me to go into the vast unknown. I don't know, mountains look a little bit funky. I guess if I had like snow on top of them, they would probably look considerably better since they're really, really tall peaks. Or if I just had something, but I'm not in love with this. I'm just gonna probably call that good. I feel like that's been a theme tonight. Every time I've done something, I've been like, that's not perfect, but I'm gonna call it good. And that's kind of the reality of everything with game development. You do what you can, and if things aren't perfect, that's pretty normal. So cool. I'm gonna say that's done. I had all this respawn code. Ha! Guess what I don't need anymore? All of this. And I'm gonna go through and clean all this stuff up because I also have a widget that fades in and out and stuff like that, so that's gonna be gross, but I'll clean that up. Okay, so in retribution for losing some time on that only took 28 minutes. Cool beans. Okay, another thing. I have this whole rhythm game built in. I just realized that I haven't even shown that in this video anyway. Let me turn this down a little bit. So when you start off, this isn't a thing, but I'll press my debug key to unlock it. And if I get some air, you'll see I get these little rhythm things. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Clearly I'm very bad at it, and also the starting area doesn't have very big, or doesn't have hills that you're intended to get like tons and tons of air off of. That's more over here. But yeah, it's basically, you're up in the air, it dynamically generates beats based on the music that's playing. So I have a few different songs in here that you can kind of hear. Different tempo, and I'll play them. It always plays quarter notes because I didn't want to like actually design beat maps for every single one of these songs. That would have taken way too long. There are only 3 songs in the game, but still, my system, actually I'm pretty happy with this. Let me see if I can find this easily. Why? What is this? Oh, I'm searching something. Okay. I was like, where did all my graphs go? Essentially every song has a tempo number that I think is probably halved here. And then it just spawns little rhythm blocks that you can hit while you're up in the air. The problem with all this that I haven't got to is that it's not really tutorialized. About halfway through the game, you buy your first upgrade with money, and then you're darn, I keep forgetting that escape closes the game if I'm playing an editor. But your roommate character here that's telling you, oh, you need to go get money. You buy your first upgrade, and he's like, I have a cool scheme for you to make even more cash while you're out there. You'll go do dances in your hamster ball, and we'll put videos of it online, and you'll get a ton of money from it. And your boss is a jerk. No surprise there. But yeah, and I didn't implement a tutorial at first because I was like, maybe people will just figure it out, and I also didn't have time, and it wasn't really part of what I had planned on for the sprint. So the dialogue is literally just like, oh, your playable character is like, can you show me some cool dance moves? And he's like, oh, I'm super out of practice. Just hit hills and get big air and press the buttons and you'll figure it out. It's kind of jokingly bad, and I figure maybe it'll suffice. And then whenever new people who are new to video games try it, they struggle a lot. So I think my plan is to have it. I also like that money thing. That works so much better. Whenever you go talk to him, he'll be like, here's some cool tricks, and rather than having to get air, it'll just show you the UI. You'll be kind of you can stay on the ground and it'll show you the UI, and you do some moves, and then once you've done enough of them, you'll go, okay, cool, you learned it, and then it'll progress. So weaving all that into the stories, my story script will actually probably take a little while, but yeah, I guess we'll probably start there. Okay, so after some work to get sort of an override in to allow you to see the rhythm panel, he'll do some stuff, he'll tell you some stuff, and then I changed the dialogue a bit, so he goes, why don't you show me your moves? Show me your moves. Just stay here and press buttons. Don't worry about missing the right notes. And then, it shows up as I want. However, input not working. So I have no idea what's causing that, but I'll figure it out. But I also got a thing hooked up that I have an event, so I can actually, the level can tell when you've hit notes and how well you hit them, so I can use that to say, okay, once you hit enough of good notes, then you move on. I'm trying to think about whether I really need a UI element, whether I need to work that into my sort of to-do list of hit 5 great notes or something like that. I'm guessing it'll be over and done with so quickly that people won't even notice, so it won't be worth the time to put in, but we'll see. I figured it out. This is the culprit. So my inputs only actually get sent to the rhythm widget whenever you have this rhythm high enough unlocked. So I think actually if I just do an OR here with show rhythm override and then plug that into my AND, I think that should actually fix it right then and there. And now you get to experience the joy of being a game designer and having to test dialogue where you just spam through this stuff. Okay, there we go. And it's going to be really difficult to see, but up in the top left corner, I have some debug text showing the level blueprint is in fact detecting what the quality of those notes are. So now I just need to get that hooked up, and that should be pretty quick. Oh, and of course, just so nobody has any conniptions about my blueprints, of course, I'm going to straighten all this stuff out. Don't worry, I wasn't just going to leave it all gross like that. There you go. Great, perfect. Little design thing that I did was making a couple places in my dialogue where it goes, hey, you can practice here. Remember, practice on the ground. It's really important to really just repetition can be good for your players. Subtlety is overrated. Just sometimes hitting them over the head with the dialogue hammer of make sure you do this, make sure you do this. And if you say it enough times, eventually people will remember to actually do it. because I don't want people feeling like they have to start going and moving around. I don't think it would break my code. I'll test it, but obviously the point is for them to have like an isolated kind of time where they can practice it. So okay, so I've confirmed that this works if you stay here and do this, and after you hit 8 notes, that's a variable I have set right now, but I can change it, then it'll do the thing. But it looks like, yeah, this is working more or less as intended. You can move around and it'll still stay up. And I don't think I have to be anywhere in particular. Yeah, cool. I'll say, yeah, I was getting in the groove. Now do it in the air. Yeah. And then you'll just go back to doing the same old stuff. And I just want to make sure that this actually works now. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So once you purchase all 3 upgrades, that's whenever the next piece of story starts, and it's like, get $1,200 to rent. It says it on the left side of the screen there, so that all works. I just have to fix this so that it's not starting like way ahead into the sequence anymore. Cool. Let's see how long that took. Hour and 7 minutes. I think that's quite a bit over what I had. Yeah. Okay. 7 minutes, but it's done. I'm surprised I've been able to get through all this stuff tonight. I could certainly like I just have some like UI elements where I wish the panels were a little bit bigger. Like these, the borders around these could be a little bit bigger. This one especially. So that'll be a quick fix. What else do I have on here? Dialogue doesn't collapse when paused. Turn off beacons while paused. I'm not sure about this one. This might be more of a pain in the butt, but I can certainly fix these two. Well, at least this one pretty quickly. This one might be worse. I'm trying to think about how this is done. That one might be worse. Well, I'll start looking at it and see if it's real bad. So I made all these panels have at least 16 points of padding around them. They still feel a little bit claustrophobic. This is one of those things where it's just like, I don't know, I feel like as a designer you could just sit here for years and years and years and be like, oh, I think the padding should be like 8 more pixels. And I just realized that I like randomly unpause myself. Yeah, you can mess with padding forever. That was the point. And it'll make a difference, just not like when the people will consciously notice, but it's still worth doing. It's still worth finicking around because people will unconsciously notice and care about it. Look at that. Isn't that a little bit nicer? That is 32 point padding, so twice as much as I had before. Yeah, looks a little bit chunkier, but I like it. Okay. I'm trying to weigh whether or not I really want to go down this rabbit hole of figuring out how to turn off beacons while the game is paused. It's 10 p.m. It's a Sunday night. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut my losses and call this week's worth of work, which is actually just a few hours tonight, because this is decked out week. I had control over what I wanted to work on, so I took it easy. But yeah, I'm basically going to, I guess, write a little summary of what I did for this sprint as per what the class recommends or requires, and write a plan for what I'm going to do for the next week that maybe I'll do a recording. Maybe I won't. This certainly won't be edited. May or may not upload this to YouTube. If you're watching it, then yeah, I guess I did. Do the regular YouTube stuff. Thanks.